The former Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Mr. Abubakar Malami, arrives at the Federal High Court, Abuja, for the ruling on his bill application. Beaming with smiles, he exchanges pleasantries with his associates.
Very well, thank you.
Mr. Malami, his wife and son are facing a 16-count charge to the tune of 9 billion naira brought against him by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. They were arraigned on December 30 last year and had been in the custody of the Kuje Correctional Center after the hearing of the bill application. However, the trial judge, Justice Emeka Nwite, had granted them 500 million naira bill each, with two sureties who must have landed properties in Maitama, Asokoro, and Gwarimpa districts. The former AGF and his sureties were also ordered to deposit their two recent passport photographs with the court. The former AGF must not travel out of the country without the permission of the court. Meanwhile, they are to be remanded at the Kuje Correctional Center, pending the perfection of their bail conditions. The judge further warned the counsel to the AGF to desist from approaching him for any favor, cautioning that his leniency should not be taken for granted, as he is unapproachable.
We are comfortable with the bail conditions, and we are hopeful that within a reasonable time, we'll fulfill those bail conditions, and the defendant will be released and prepare for their defense. Yes. The issue of self-recognizance, it's actually in respect of the first defendant. Well, we are not disappointed about that. Issues of bail is entirely at the discretion of the court, and the court, based on the affidavit evidence before it, rightly held that it is satisfied that the defendant, particularly the first defendant, will not in any way interfere with the prosecution witnesses, and he will make himself available for trial.
Justice Emeka Nwite subsequently fixed February 17 for the commencement of trial.
Yeah, welcome back. Well, Lalo Akande joins us this morning. Good morning, and thank you for coming on today.
Good morning, good to see you guys.
So that case still going on, but one thing that stuck up like a sore thumb to a lot of people was the comments, the quotes from the judge, Justice Nwite. He said, "I want to admonish and warn counsel and litigants. They should know so that people can understand what's going on." We didn't see the picture of him saying it. And so we're just wondering. He says, look, you should know the type of courts that they are appearing before. All judges are not the same. Irrespective of my familiarity with you, when I am dealing with any case, do not approach me. This is pregnant, because it says, number one, all judges are not the same. It means some may read meaning into the saying, oh, so counsels and litigants do approach some judges. For him to say, look, we're not all the same. Don't approach me. Suggesting you may have approached other people, or maybe, but do not approach me. But we don't even know which counsel now, because there was a plural there, litigants and counsel.
Exactly. Well, so it's we have to be very careful the way we interpret what the judge is trying to say, because he hasn't given us sufficient details. We don't know which of the counsel is referring to, because normally I believe in their practice, when a case is going on, if there's going to be a sidebar, that is where the judge is meeting the counsel, it has to be both of them that are there, and that is not unusual. So it suggests that some counsels are trying to see him outside of that practice.
Can we call it extrajudicial meeting?
Well, we have to ask lawyers to tell us exactly what that means. But I think it is very significant that the judge felt compelled to come to the open to indicate that some people are trying to play games.
Wow.
In this case. what we need to focus on. That look, we want this case, like any case that goes to court, to properly. We want it to only run objectively. We want it to be done fairly.
Doesn't this comment feel the impression that people may have about justice delivery in this country? Because he went further to say, look, don't tarnish my image. It means that, look, sometimes, so they actually approach these judges, and then they just, maybe as a reason of that approach, they bend and then deliver judgments to, I don't know, is it the highest bidder?
I was going to say, look, Chamberlain, have you been invited to court before?
To approach the judge?
To approach them.
I can't approach them. They said, don't approach me. I'm not going to approach them.
Well, I mean, the thing is that it is quite a worry, you know, that the judge felt compelled to say this. So that suggests a lot of things. And we are also familiar with some of the criticisms about what is happening in our judiciary. We know all the points, you know, and that's why we are saying that there must be judicial reforms and all of that.
Wow.
The greatest point that I want to say and make here is that, look, this case should be done promptly and it should be done fairly, you know, because it is quite a thing to have a former, as a matter of fact, the immediate past Attorney General. The position of Attorney General is a very critical one because it's one of the few cabinet ranks that are listed in the Constitution. I think it's actually Attorney General and the Minister of Finance. I don't think there are other ministers that are mentioned in the Constitution. So when somebody like that has to face a case like this, it is very significant for all of us. It defines where we are as a people. So this case has to be done very well, thoroughly, and also, you know, to be fair to the man, it has to be done fairly also.
You know, it's interesting that all of the past attorney generals now seem to always have one case or the other to answer. However, I don't want to use the word contrived. I mean, we saw, now we're seeing Malami having to answer cases. And he served in the administration under which you served. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you must be quite embarrassed and perhaps shocked as to...
I'm not embarrassed and I'm not shocked because, you know, some of the things that was happening, I was aware of it, you know. And I think I made a point about this. I just don't want to go into the details because the matter is in court. I'm not embarrassed at all.
You're not embarrassed?
I'm not embarrassed because, you know...
that an attorney general is accused of so much fraud.
What he was doing then was reported to the president several times. It got to the cabinet several times. But I'm not going to talk about what happened there. So there's no embarrassment because some people pointed out that this is wrong when it was going on.
Wow.
So there's nothing to be embarrassed about it because we saw it coming.
I'm taking a look at the reports now of what he's been ordered to forfeit. 57 assets he's been asked to forfeit. Some of them, I think everything worth about over 213 billion naira in different places. In Abuja here, you're looking at assets worth at least 8.4 billion in Jabi. One asset alone. You're looking at assets in Kano State. You're looking at assets in Kebbi State. And you're just wondering, one person in one administration, how many more people do they have to go after?
It's so it's what it is. I mean, and it's similar to what we had with Emefiele too. What I'm embarrassed about is the fact that I believed in the change campaign of 2015. I left my life and family in New York, came back to Nigeria to be part of the change and see where it all ended. I'm embarrassed about that. But as to the details of what was happening, some of these things, we saw it when we were there, and people warned. People warned and said, this is not right. But hey, you know, we shouldn't say more than that at this point.
After all, the matter is in court. Well, yeah. Chamberlain, I'm hoping that we can change...
What kind of system do we even have for this kind of things to even...
Clearly no system. Because if this is supposed to be the people who... He's the chief law officer, or he was the chief law officer of the Federation at the time when he served, and he was chief law officer for 8 years. So if the chief law officer was the one allegedly carrying out all of the haste, then who exactly was going to be stopping anybody? But let's just leave that on the one side and talk about another jurisdiction which you're always very interested in the United States. And I'm sure you've been watching with very keen interest global politics, especially since Saturday night when Maduro was taken into U.S. custody. He's now appearing before a U.S. court where he's still maintaining that he's the president. People are wondering, what it really holds for Nigeria. They're concerned. As a matter of fact, This week, we saw the NIIA, the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs, convene something I've not seen in a very long time, a round table, you know, discussing what the prospects and what the dangers are for Nigeria and what they want President Tinubu to do. This is coming off the back, and you were very involved in that, traveling to the U.S. and being a part of the conversations that happened around a Nigeria or no Nigeria genocide, a Christian genocide. And then we're seeing this a few months or a few weeks after. I do not know if you have been thinking very strongly as to what implications this could have for us and what it could have for the global politics moving forward. Yeah, well, so it's very troubling to have, you know, a president, a sitting president of another country, you know, renditioned the way the Americans have done. But ultimately, international relations is about power. It has always been about power. Somebody was making a point at that NII, I think it was Ambassador Joe Keshi, and some of the other guys there, no, I think it was probably Adele Ginoji, one of them, said that, look, Americans are the ones that wrote the rules of international relations and law and all of those things. At least they played a very active leading roles in it. So that they are also the ones that seem to be breaking it or trying to bend it is quite significant of the fact that it is always ultimately going to be about the powerful. Well, Ambassador Joe Keshi said they're breaking it with impunity. He did not, he didn't mince words about that. And it's not the first time that they will break it. It may not be the last time. It may not be the last time. I think what is important is that, you know, countries, you know, leaders in their own countries should do what they ought to do. They need to step up their game and become powerful. Protect their, well, first of all, they need to protect their people. They need to unite with their people. You know, don't have a situation where half of the country is under suppression. Don't rig elections. Don't impose yourself. Don't violate people's rights. Be democratic as much as possible, and then you are right. Acquire as much power as you can. All right, we'll go to break. We will be back and then wrap this up, so don't go away. All right, welcome back indeed. So, I know it's a difficult one to take, all of these cases, when you keep reading them. I mean, you know what they say, no smoke without fire. All those cases about corruption, different persons in government, and you thought they said there was going to be change. Then what? It changed to this, from what we're reading, and then you hear NERD going on strike, asking for their rights, rightful entitlements, the payments. And so at that time they tell us, oh, we're trying to get money, and then look at all of these cases. So you just try to reconcile what actually goes on in government. How do these things happen? Yeah, well, how are we going to get out of this? Yeah, so like I said, my own experience in government in the 8 years of 2015 and 2023 is the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing now. To say that, look, we need to empower people with information as to how things happen and the capacity that they have for real change if they get out of their comfort zones. We need Nigerians to be actively involved in the process. You know, don't leave this thing to riff-raffs that godfathers play around with in the walls in local government. Let people, enlightened people, educated people, young people get involved in the process. But people were involved. I think that is the disappointing thing that really happened in 2015. Because a lot of people were involved. Yeah, they were involved in voting for... They were involved in voting, they were involved in the campaigns, they were involved... Yeah. People were involved. Yeah. That was why it was very difficult for the ruling party at that time to rig or even to say that they won after they lost the 2015 election. So it would seem that time and time again, you see different cadres of Nigeria. You see young people come up. In 2023, you saw young people come up and deliver without structure over 6 million votes to one candidate on a party that did not really have, you know, a structure. Exactly, so to speak. So you would see that over and over again, young people have been involved, but it would seem that politicians now are so used to disappointing them. And the system too used to disappointing them.
We need to have more involvement, because even if you look at the figures in terms of the number of people that are registered to vote and those that come out, it's still very, very low.
Compared with what?
Yeah, well, compared with even other countries in Africa.
Compared with, are you looking at the social register, the voting register, which we have not updated or we have not streamlined or cleaned out?
We have about 94 million people that are registered to vote. You know, but I think the last election we had about 12 or 13 million. That is still a huge gap. When you compare it with countries like South Africa, we need to have more people. Now, we don't have enough critical mass in the process of the evolution of candidates. So what we have that you spoke about in 2015 and 2023 is that people embrace candidates, okay? But we need to go into the process. How do these candidates emerge from the wards to the local government? Who are the people that are sponsoring them? Don't wait for the politicians to be the ones to give you the candidates. You have to get involved.
See what's happening in ADC now. I mean, you were saying someone like Aisha Yusufu, she's gone to register.
That's a very commendable, and I encourage and I actually applaud our boldness to go and get involved. That's important. But we need the critical mass of our people.
Oh, of course. But what I'm trying to say is right now you're not beginning, and they're not mincing words as to why they have joined the political party. If someone like her did not mince words, a number of other people have not minced words. And then you now have someone like Dele Momodu saying, look, this rambunctiousness and this aggressiveness, you know, it's about who can deliver.
The people steal with aggression and rambunctious stealing. So why shouldn't
don't distract me from my question. And he's talking about how there's only one candidate that has the, how will I put it now, the structure and the gravitas to be able to deliver, so to speak. So sometimes people already feel that it would seem that politicians already have a clear idea of who they want.
Yeah.
You know, or sometimes the system already has a way it works. It doesn't matter whether or not we go in to try and deliver. Because if they do not hold primaries, if there's persuasion, if there is, and these are things that we've seen over and over and over again, where people are supposed to vote at a primaries, you now begin to hear long speeches of how I want to live long, I'd like to step down for this person, you know, over and over again is something that we have seen in our politics, haven't we?
Yeah. Well I think Chief Dele Momodu is correct to say that Atiku today seems to have the upper hand, you know, today, followed closely by Amaechi. Now, Peter Obi is coming.
How are they calculating that, though?
Oh, well, based on, if you look at the tendency in the party, the people who are running the affairs of the party, if you look at it, the people who are doing the funding that is going on, you know, it's Amaechi and Atiku currently, clearly, you know, but you can see that the party seems to be conscious enough to say that, okay, you know, bring in, you know, Peter Obi's people too. So that is where you see that Aisha is now a vice chairman of the committee of registration, so that they can give an impression that, okay, everybody is getting to it. What is clear is that the primaries, and this is a very important point, the primaries in ADC have started, even before they pick a date. And that's why you see Chief Momodu coming out very aggressively to say that, look, I mean, this thing is Atiku and the rest of them. And then clearly you see that Peter Obi is also making a lot of moves. Somebody like Amaechi is also clearly going underground, and he seems to be making progress. So the primaries have started. My position is this. If the ADC is serious about having a place in the contest, they cannot present a northern candidate. The day they present a northern candidate, the game is over. The country is not ready to say that we will have 8 years of the north, and then 4 years, and then back to the north. No. The country is not in that mood.
You've heard him say,
you've
heard him say that is a primitive and primordial consideration. And
the truth
and
about
I'm
our
to move beyond that.
The truth about our condition today in Nigeria is that we are still struggling about this notion of unity. And so we are building that unity. Rotational presidency is one of the building blocks of Nigeria's unity. That is the truth. Anybody that denies that is simply partisan, like Chief Momodu, partisan. Momodu is working for Atiku. I'm sure you guys know that clearly. And that's why I said that the primaries have started. So those other candidates who are still thinking that it's a gentleman's game, no, the primaries in ADC have started. And if they are serious, let's give them this free advice, guys. Pick a southern candidate and then there's going to be a game.
So after all of this, how did they stop rigging? Because some of these guys, they say, okay, do what you want. We know where we'll wait for you. They bank on rigging the elections. I mean, you saw Honorable Glochini yesterday raising some concerns about the process. He says how even the courts themselves, too, they need to look at the mirror in terms of the roles they play with some of these politicians, just bringing in people who the people did not elect to lead.
Well,
how do we correct all those structural challenges?
Anybody in Trump's world trying to play games with his people, they have their warnings. It is written clearly on the wall. Let the people choose whoever they want. Don't expose yourself to a potential, even if illegal international violation. You know, don't rig. The only thing we can do is to advise them. Don't try to rig yourself in. Look at what happened to Maduro. We don't endorse it, but the world that we have today, the wise things for politicians to do is to at least know that my people are behind me. Be very careful. I mean, the world that we live today, and that's the flip side of all this stuff that is going on in Venezuela and the US. It is because it was possible. It was easy for the Americans to go in there and even compromise the system against their president because the president himself has a lot of skeletons in the cupboard.
Because it's going to be a new dawn. It should be. You can't collect all those taxes which starts at January 1st, that new tax law, and not expect the people to ask questions of what you're doing with my money, why are you collecting the money, who am I electing to manage my money. I think that should change.
And I see that you're very concerned about that.
Exactly.
Yes, I'm very concerned. And I think everybody should be concerned because if they take our money, I can't be seeing them driving in those kind of convoy and they're acting like some deity, some god who will not even make themselves available to talk to the people. No, that time should change. No, I think that time we'll definitely see what we'll do about all of that. Thank you very much indeed for coming on this morning. Well, that wraps it up today on the program. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. I'm Chamberlain Usof. Goodbye.
And I'm Maokwe Ogu Yusuf. Have a wonderful Thursday.